one of the 10 great physiques. Initial emperor hadn't hesitated to choose Huang Yi mainly because of Huang Ye's physique. Besides that, the other reason was that he knew more about the desolate race than the others. He didn't know much, but that was enough. Just like that, the others watched as initial emperor left with Huang Yi. A long period of silence ensued, and then Beichuan Xiu suddenly said, "Farewell." He turned around and left. It didn't take long for everyone to leave, and only Yi Go and Elder Qing remained. Yi Go said, "They are going to Huang Yi." Elder Qing glanced at Yi Go. "You're not going too?" Yi Go replied indifferently, "Honor is important in life, is it not?" Elder Qing glanced up into the sky. "Huang Yi is right. We must choose between the desolate race and eternal kingdom." Yi Go spoke solemnly. "Has eternal kingdom taken any action?" Elder Qing smiled. "What do you think?" Yi Go gazed at Elder Qing. "Elder Qing, which side are you taking?" Elder Qing glanced at the surroundings and said, "Eternal border." His figure trembled and vanished on the spot. A long time later, a man suddenly appeared here. Yi Go bowed slightly when he saw the middle-aged man. "Eldest prince, eldest prince." He was the eldest prince of the desolate race, Huang Tianqing. The man glanced at Yi Go's shoulder, and then he appeared by Yi Go's side and placed his hand on Yi Go's shoulder. An instant later, an arm started to grow slowly from there. A short while later, Huang Tianqing removed his hand. "Let's go take a look at that existence in the abyss world." Huang Tianqing walked off into the distance, and Yi Go hurried after him. Around 15 minutes later, Huang Tianqing stopped. There was a pitch-black hole in space not too far away from them, and a powerful aura frequently rippled out from it. Yi Go spoke softly, "Eldest prince, is this where the beast of the abyss is sealed?" Huang Tianqing nodded. He walked forward and raised his right hand slightly before gently pressing it down at the black hole. In an instant, the entire black hole started to tremble. Some time passed before Huang Tianqing spoke softly, "Shatter!" Boom! An explosion resounded from within the black hole, and then a terrifying aura swept out from within. The powerful aura was like a rising tide that swept at Huang Tianqing and Yi Go. The latter's expression changed slightly from the sight of it, and he was about to do something when Huang Tianqing waved his right hand lightly. Along with that movement of his hand, the pressure instantly vanished without a trace as if it had never been there. Yi Go couldn't help but glance at Huang Tianqing, and there was reverence in his eyes. Suddenly, a huge pitch-black claw stretched out from within the black hole, and it slammed down at Huang Tianqing. The four-world realm. Yi Go was certain from this attack that the beast within the black hole was at least at the four-world realm. Huang Tianqing remained calm as he took a step forward and waved his right hand gently. Bang! The pitch-black claw was blasted back into the black hole. An instant later, Huang Tianqing stretched out his right hand, and a huge ethereal claw shot into the black hole. A short while later, a shrill cry suddenly resounded from within it. Meanwhile, Huang Tianqing's figure entered the black hole. Around 15 minutes passed before he walked out again. A small pitch-black demon beast was behind him. It looked like a pitch-black cat with a sharp horn on its head. Black light frequently coiled around the horn. The small demon beast glanced at Yi Go with a ferocious look in its eyes. Yi Go's eyes were filled with fear and vigilance. Huang Tianqing walked over to Yi Go, patted him lightly on the shoulder, and said, "The three-world realm is too weak. The four-world realm barely passes." A pure white pearl appeared before Yi Go. A world energy pill. Yi Go's hands trembled from the sight of it. Huang Tianqing didn't say anything and just walked off into the distance. The pitch-black demon beast viciously bared its fangs at Yi Go when it passed him. Yi Go clenched his fists slowly. While there was vigilance and caution in his eyes, he wasn't afraid. The demon beast didn't attack and just vanished on the spot. Outside the abyss world, Yang Yi stood in space there. He put the myriad world diagram away while looking at the abyss below him. Nanli Meng had mentioned the abyss world to him, so he decided to come have a look. Snowy stood on Yang Ye's shoulder and pointed at the abyss below with a trace of curiosity in her eyes. Yang Yi asked, "Want to go down there?" Snowy nodded. Yang Yi smiled. He was about to head down there when he suddenly looked into the distance. A young man and two middle-aged men were shooting toward him. Xianxia's eyes narrowed slightly. He recognized one of them. It was the initial emperor. Yang Yi grinned when he saw the initial emperor. Suddenly, Huang Yi, who was leading the group, walked over to Yang Yi and smiled. This must be the #1 genius of Eternal Border. It's a pleasure to meet you. As he spoke, he gazed at Snowy, and then his eyes narrowed slightly while a faint smile curled up on his lips. Yang Yi glanced at Huang Yi. The desolate race? Huang Yi moved his gaze away from Snowy and smiled. Yes. Yang Yi grinned. I've killed 2 already. Right, they were quite weak. It only took a single swing of my sword. Huang Yi gazed at Yang Yi for a long time and smiled. They were just too useless. He gazed at Xianxia and smiled. Brother Yang, I heard you're a sword cultivator. This friend of mine is a sword cultivator too. Why don't you compete? Of course, it's only until a winner is decided. Xianxia glanced at Yang Yi. Just until a victor is decided is meaningless. Let's decide on life and death. All right? Life and death. Yang Yi smiled and gazed at Huang Yi. Why don't we compete? Huang Yi was about to speak when Xianxia suddenly appeared in front of Yang Yi. And then a speck of light suddenly appeared before Yang Ye's forehead. Hiss! The speck of light pierced through Yang Ye's forehead. But it was merely an afterimage. Xianxia suddenly turned around and swung his sword. Bang! An explosion resounded, and space shook while 2 sword howls filled the sky. Crack! The space in a huge area instantly cracked open like a net had been carved into it. Meanwhile, Yang Yi and Xianxia were 300 m away from each other. They gazed at each other from afar. As for Huang Yi and the initial emperor, they were over 3 kilometers away. Huang Yi smiled as he gazed at Yang Yi and Xianxia. It's amazing that Eternal Border gave birth to someone like him. The initial emperor glanced at Yang Yi and remained silent. Suddenly, Yang Yi drew his sword. A sword howl resounded, and then a ray of light flashed. Hiss! Everywhere it passed, space was sliced open before it. Meanwhile, Xianxia suddenly drew his sword, and then sword energy rippled through the surroundings. Bang! As soon as their sword energy collided, the space in the surroundings instantly exploded apart. The explosions went on for quite some time before the sky suddenly calmed down, and both of them were still standing in confrontation from afar. Xianxia was looking at Yang Yi, and he just gazed at Yang Yi while his sword trembled violently in his grasp. As for Yang Yi, his sword was extremely calm, and it wasn't moving at all. Yang Yi ignored Xianxia and gazed at the initial emperor, causing the latter to slowly clench his fists. Meanwhile, Huang Yi smiled. Brother Yang, there's 3 of us. Yang Yi smiled. You can come at me together. Ha ha! Huang Yi roared with laughter, and his laughter rumbled through the surroundings. A short while passed before he gazed at Yang Yi. Yang Yi, oh Yang Yi, I have to say that you're really arrogant. Looks like recruiting you is impossible. But that's fine because based on your temper, my eldest cousin and 9th brother won't be able to recruit you either. It's fine, we can wear you down slowly. After all, you and that sprite progenitor will never be able to escape. Ha ha! He turned around and left with the initial emperor and Xianxia. Yang Yi was about to attack when he suddenly looked down. A powerful evil aura had suddenly swept up from below. However, it only took a short while for the aura to shrink back as if it had never appeared. A short while later, a middle-aged man appeared within Yang Ye's field of vision. It was Huang Tianxing and Yi Go. Huang Tianxing stopped. The completely pitch-black demon beast by his side gazed at Snowy. Its eyes were filled with ferocity, killing intent, greed, and a trace of fear. The sprite progenitor. The demon beast had clearly recognized Snowy, and it revealed greed and killing intent because Snowy wasn't a true sprite progenitor yet. If Snowy became a true sprite progenitor, then even if they were enemies, it wouldn't dare to look directly at Snowy like this. All those years ago, even the powerful desolate beasts of the desolate race had refused to join the battle. Even if the desolate emperor had killed 2 powerful desolate beasts, the others still didn't dare to act against the sprite progenitor. Snowy gazed at the demon beast. As soon as she noticed the ferocious glow and killing intent in its eyes, Snowy's eyes opened wide, and she inhaled lightly. In an instant, the black light on the demon beast's horn dimmed down slightly. Roar! The demon beast was furious, and it transformed into a ray of black light that shot at Snowy while a powerful aura surged at Snowy like an erupting volcano. In the primordial pagoda, Arya was strolling randomly around the sword sect when she suddenly stopped. She pulled out the Tonghulu in her mouth and looked up into the sky. Pierce of trash! You're even trying to attack Snowy? Oxy! Let's kill it and roast it for food. She vanished on the spot once she finished speaking. Snowy was furious when she saw the small demon beast charge at her. Snowy glared at it and was about to attack. However, Arya suddenly appeared in front of her and Xianxia. Arya gazed at the black demon beast that was charging in her direction, and her face remained emotionless. She suddenly swung a punch when it was less than 3 m away. Bang! This punch forced the demon beast to a stop. An instant later, she swung another punch, and it was punched flying all the way to Huang Tianxing. The pitch-black demon beast was exasperated from being punched away, and a vicious glow arose in its eyes. A moment later, strands of terrifying aura seeped out incessantly from within it. At the same time, its body gradually grew larger. Arya glanced at it and patted her hands together. Little piece of trash! The demon beast was beyond furious when it heard this. It raised its right claw and placed it on the horn on its head, and it was about to attack when Huang Tianxing suddenly stopped it. The demon beast glanced at Huang Tianxing while the intent to kill still filled its eyes. Huang Tianxing glanced at it and spoke indifferently. Stand down! The demon beast bared its fangs at him and howled. Obviously, it didn't want to. Huang Tianxing nodded. Then go on. Once it received his permission, the demon beast's tiny body instantly expanded over 10 times. At this moment, it was at least 2 times larger than an elephant, and its aura instantly rose explosively as well. The 4-world realm. A true 4-world realm demon beast. The demon beast suddenly leaped up and pounced at Arya. A powerful wave of pressure and aura swept toward her like a storm. In an instant, the space there trembled before it. Arya's face remained indifferent. Suddenly, she stomped her right foot down and shot up into the air, and then she slammed herself against the demon beast. Boom! An explosion resounded in mid-air, and then a figure was blasted away. It was the black demon beast. A moment later, Arya instantly appeared before it, and she slammed her fist down against its head. As soon as it slammed down, the veins beneath her arm trembled while a wave of mysterious energy rippled out. The energy of her bloodline. Boom! The demon beast's head instantly cracked open. It wasn't just its head which had cracked open. Even its body cracked open in an instant and blood sprayed. Meanwhile, Arya swung another punch. Boom! The demon beast was punched flying again. After she punched it away, Arya didn't attack again. She returned to Xianxia and glanced at both Xianxia and Snowy. I'm amazing, right? Snowy nodded repeatedly. Xianxia glanced at her in silence. Arya cracked a smile at Snowy, and then she turned around and walked toward the demon beast. The demon beast gazed at Arya with astonishment and fear in its eyes. Besides that, there was a trace of terror too. Terror. It didn't know what Arya was, but it knew that the little girl was absolutely not someone it could offend. As it watched Arya walk closer, the demon beast instinctively moved behind Huang Tianxing. Arya was stunned by the sight of this and laughed with ridicule. Coward! The demon beast was exasperated by this, but it didn't dare to step forward and fight her. While it didn't dare to attack, Arya did. She tapped her right foot down lightly and shot at it. The demon beast hesitated for a moment but didn't attack in the end. It had been traumatized by her punches. It didn't take long for Arya to arrive in front of it, and then she slammed her fist at Huang Tianxing. Huang Tianxing's expression remained indifferent as he took a step forward and slammed his fist at her. Their fists collided. Bang! The entire area shook violently. Huang Tianxing took 2 steps back while Arya returned to Xianxia. She glanced at Huang Tianxing and said, Big brother Yang, you deal with him. She moved behind Yang Yi as she spoke. Yang Yi glared at her, and then he gazed at Huang Tianqing and swung his sword. Hiss! A ray of brilliant sword energy flashed. Huang Tianqing remained indifferent as he tapped his finger forward, and it tapped on the ray of sword energy. Hiss! The sword energy shook violently, and then Huang Tianqing took quite a few steps back, but it didn't take long for him to stabilize himself and twist his right hand. Bang! The sword energy exploded apart. Huang Tianqing took a step forward and tapped his finger at Yang Yi from afar. Hiss! A ray of black light flashed. A ray of sword energy shot out from Yang Yi's waist. Bang! The ray of black light exploded apart before Yang Yi, and he took a few steps back. The surroundings fell silent. Huang Tianqing glanced at Yang Yi. Not bad. Unfortunately, you're bound to die. As soon as he finished speaking, he vanished on the spot with the demon beast and Yigo. Bound to die. Yang Yi closed his eyes slowly. The desolate race had shown themselves, so it was obvious that Eternal Kingdom would be coming too. Regardless of whether it was the desolate race or Eternal Kingdom, their objective was definitely Snowy, the sprite progenitor. Eternal Kingdom definitely wanted to possess the sprite progenitor again and make the sprite progenitor take their side. And the desolate race definitely didn't want history to repeat itself. Simply speaking, Yang Yi and Snowy were stuck in between Eternal Kingdom and the desolate race. Meanwhile, Snowy suddenly pointed down to indicate that Yang Yi should head down there. Head down there? Yang Yi was stunned and asked, "There's a treasure down there?" Snowy nodded. Yang Yi grinned. "Come on, let's head down there." As soon as he finished speaking, he vanished on the spot with Snowy and Arya. The Abyss world was huge. It was a world, but it was very small to people like Yang Yi. After all, he could see through half of it with a single glance. Yang Yi shot all the way down on his sword for almost 2 hours before he arrived at the bottom. It was a gray and hazy world. He could neither see the sky nor the ground, and the surroundings were ghastly and cold. Snowy pointed ahead to indicate that Yang Yi should go that way. Meanwhile, Arya suddenly asked, "Snowy, is there any danger?" "Danger?" Snowy blinked, looked into the distance, hesitated for a moment, and then finally shook her head. Yang Yi and Arya exchanged glances. In the end, Arya licked her tonghulu and asked, "Snowy, is it really not dangerous?" Snowy shot a glance in that direction, blinked, and then gazed at them with a questioning gaze. "Is there danger there?" Arya's face darkened. "We're asking you that question." Snowy raised her paws to display that she didn't know. Arya was quite displeased. "If you don't know, then why did you say that there's no danger there?" Snowy pointed in that direction and blinked. She seemed to be asking if there was danger there. Yang Yi was at a loss for words. Arya walked over to Snowy, passed the tangulu to her and said, "I'm really helpless against you." She gazed at Yang Yi and continued, "Big brother Yang, you ask." Yang Yi rubbed Snowy's little head and pointed ahead. "Snowy, whatever is over there, can Arya and I win against it?" Arya gave Yang Yi a thumbs up. "Big brother Yang, you really know how to do it." Snowy glanced ahead, thought for a while, and then nodded. Yang Yi nodded. "All right, let's go." Arya too felt that there was no issue now. Just like that, Yang Yi left Snowy and Arya forward, and around an hour later he stopped. There was a mountain wall not too far ahead of them, and there was a huge crack on it. The crack went extremely deep to the point he couldn't see where it led. On the right of the crack was a broken saber. There was only half of it left, and it was completely cracked apart. There was no life left in it. Snowy waved her right paw, and it immediately flew over to her. Snowy shook her head as she gazed at it. Yang Yi asked, "What's wrong?" Snowy tapped it lightly, and then she waved her paw to display that it was broken. Yang Yi asked, "Can you repair it?" Snowy thought for a moment and blew on it. In an instant, a strand of pure spirit energy entered it, and then the saber shook violently. After that, the cracks on it gradually healed. Arya glanced at Snowy and said, "Snowy, you can specialize in repairing weapons. You'll make a killing." Snowy cracked a smile and tapped the saber a few times. A short while later, The saber howled, and then it emanated rays of light. A pseudo-divine treasure. The broken saber was definitely a divine treasure at least. Unfortunately, it had been broken apart, and not only had its body been destroyed, even its intelligence had been destroyed. So, the saber had instantly been reduced to nothing. Now, Snowy had clearly given it new life. The broken saber trembled in Snowy's paws and seemed to be communicating with Snowy. Snowy glanced at it, patted it lightly, and then sent it into the primordial pagoda. Xianxia glanced at Snowy and was about to speak when the mountain wall started shaking. Xianxia, Arya, and Snowy hurriedly looked over, and the cracks on the mountain wall gradually grew larger. Xianxia walked to the front of their group and tightened his grip on his sword while a vigilant expression appeared on his face. Arya licked her Tonghulu and just gazed at the cracks. No one knew what she was thinking. Suddenly, a black hand stretched out from behind the cracks. Xianxia's eyes narrowed slightly, and he swung his sword. Bang! Xianxia was blasted far away. As soon as he stopped himself, the ground beneath his feet exploded apart, and the mountain behind him was obliterated. Blood flowed from Xianxia's mouth. Arya and Snowy's expressions changed drastically. Both of them hurriedly went over to Xianxia while worry covered Snowy's face. Xianxia was about to speak when a strand of blood sprayed from his mouth. After spitting out a few mouthfuls of blood, Xianxia gazed at Snowy. Didn't you say that I could win? Snowy blinked and waved her paws. She was asking him if he really couldn't win? Xianxia's face darkened. My little lord, can't you even figure that out? Xianxia had quite the headache. Snowy didn't have a proper idea of how strong he was. As far as Snowy was concerned, there was nothing he couldn't defeat, and now it had brought great trouble to him. Now, he didn't dare to believe that little bastard anymore. Snowy gazed at Arya, and the latter glanced at Snowy and spoke indifferently. Big Brother Yang is right, you need to learn these things. Snowy was at a loss for words. Xianxia ignored them and looked at the cracks in the mountain wall. A black shadow was slowly floating out of there. It didn't take long for Xianxia to see it clearly. It was human, and based on his outer appearance, he was around 30 years old. A pitch-black spear floated behind him. The middle-aged man's gaze immediately descended onto Xianxia, but it didn't take long for his gaze to move down onto Xianxia's sword. He frowned slightly when he saw the sword. Executor! As soon as he finished speaking, he suddenly gazed at Snowy and Arya, and his frown deepened. Impossible! Snowy blinked. She was sneaking glances at the cracks behind the man. Arya licked her Tonghulu while remaining vigilant at all times. She wasn't Snowy, so she wasn't that carefree. The middle-aged man gazed at them for a long time and said, The sprite progenitor and evil. He glanced at Arya, hesitated for a moment, and continued, How truly inconceivable. A sprite progenitor and you actually exist in such a world. Arya suddenly asked, Who are you? The middle-aged man glanced at Arya. A failure. Failure. Arya frowned. You failed. The middle-aged man nodded. I did. Arya asked. What did you fail in? The middle-aged man smiled. You'll find out soon. Arya hesitated for a moment and asked, Will you kill us? Obviously, she'd sensed how strong he was, and if he acted against them, they would definitely die here today. The middle-aged man replied with a question. Why would I kill you? Arya nodded, stopped being vigilant against him, and moved over to Xianxia's side. Meanwhile, the middle-aged man gazed at Xianxia. You're suppressing your cultivation? Xianxia nodded. The middle-aged man said, There are benefits and disadvantages to that. The slightest mistake may cause you to die from it. Xianxia hesitated for a moment and said, Senior, please guide me. The middle-aged man said, Everything has its limits. Suppressing the cultivation is a unique form of cultivation, and it's a very extreme one too. It's like eating, and eating too much may cause you to die from overeating. So, you must improve your mental state while doing this. Xianxia was puzzled. My mental state? The middle-aged man explained. What would happen when a poor person suddenly possesses millions? Xianxia replied solemnly. That person will lose themselves. The middle-aged man nodded. Yes, that person will lose themselves or even become arrogant. However, if the same person slowly accumulated the same amount of wealth, that person will usually not lose themselves. The difference between the two of them is actually their mental state. He gazed at Yang Yi and continued, the more you suppress your cultivation, the more you must focus on the cultivation of your mental state. If it can't keep up, you'll kill yourself one day. Now, your cultivation has already surpassed your mental state. So, focus more on it from now on. Cultivate the heart, the mental state. Yang Yi thought for a long time and nodded. Thank you for the guidance, Senior. He hesitated for a moment and asked, Senior, are you above the 5 worlds? Above the 5 worlds? The man was stunned for a moment, and then quite a strange expression appeared on his face. Yang Yi asked, what is it? The middle-aged man shook his head. It's understandable. After all, you're still very weak. Yang Ye's face froze and was absolutely unsightly. Can't you hold back a little? The middle-aged man continued, how should I put it? He paused for a moment and continued, you should look further than that and you can go further too. When you look back in 10 years from now, you'll notice how laughable and immature it was to consider your current enemies as experts. Yang Yi smiled. That does make sense. However, I should focus on what's before me and take every step well. What do you think? Indeed. The man nodded slightly and smiled. It's very good that you can think in this way. He shook his head at this point. Unfortunately, you're a sword cultivator and aren't suited to my path. What a pity. Yang Yi glanced at the spear behind him, hesitated for a moment, and asked, do you know Senior Wu and I? Wu and I. The middle-aged man nodded. I do. Yang Yi asked, how does your strength compare to his? The middle-aged man smiled. I was merely slightly inferior at my prime. Yang Yi smiled when he heard this, and then a Nanjing appeared by his side. Once a Nanjing appeared here, the middle-aged man's gaze immediately fell on her. The martial god physique. Yang Yi smiled. Senior, do you think she's suitable? The middle-aged man grinned. Of course. He gazed at her and continued. Are you willing to learn my spear Dao? And Nanjing asked. Is it strong? He nodded. Of course. And Nanjing replied. Then of course. The middle-aged man's grin widened. My spear Dao has but one attack. One attack in a battle, and just that is enough. As he spoke, the middle-aged man started to pass it down to her. He didn't make Yang Yi leave. Obviously, he wanted to guide Yang Yi too. Yang Yi naturally grabbed such an opportunity. He sat down cross-legged and listened in silence with a Nanjing. Meanwhile, Snowy glanced left and right, and then she pulled Arya with her as she sneaked off. It didn't take long for them to arrive before the cracks in the wall. Arya asked softly, Snowy, are you trying to steal his treasures? Steal? Snowy blinked and then she waved her paws swiftly. Snowy was telling her it wasn't stealing. It was taking. Taking. Arya glanced at Snowy. But you're taking them without their owner's permission. So it's stealing. Stealing isn't very good. Her grandfather had taught her a lot in Eternal Village, and one of it was that she couldn't steal. Snowy blinked, and then she waved her paws. She was saying that even if the owner didn't agree, it was all right if she received the agreement of the treasures themselves. Arya thought for a moment and said, that does make sense, but something about it doesn't seem right. Snowy cracked a smile and pulled her into the cracks. Meanwhile, Yang Yi and the others ignored the two little fellows. Just like that, Snowy and Arya just swaggered off into the cracks, and it didn't take long for them to stop abruptly. Snowy's eyes seemed like they were studded with stars, and even Arya was staring ahead. There was a pile of fist-sized crystals ahead. All of them were dark violet crystals. World crystals. Eternal Border had eternal immortal crystals and eternal divine crystals. But the most precious was eternal world crystals. World crystals were crystals condensed from the spirit of a world. Such crystals were very, very rare. It could be said that just one could be exchanged for at least 1,000 eternal divine crystals, and it was impossible to exchange successfully. The most prominent effect of eternal world crystals wasn't their ability to improve a person's cultivation. It was to replenish spirit energy. Even 5 world realm experts could instantly replenish their profound energy with a single one of these crystals. If 2 people were in a battle of life and death, and their strengths were equally matched, then a single eternal world crystal was very likely to be the key to deciding the victor. Besides that, eternal world crystals could improve a person's cultivation, and they contained a type of profound energy called world energy, the purest form of spirit energy in a world. Such spirit energy was very, very beneficial to cultivation. For example, it could help someone advance from their realm of cultivation. World energy was one of the 10 great spirit energies, and every one of them had their own advantages. World energy's advantage was its ability to help with breakthroughs. So long as one had sufficient world energy and was at a sufficient level of cultivation, one could advance. But there were at least 300 eternal world crystals here. Even if it was eternal border, it would take at least 10,000 years to form a few hundred of these crystals, let alone 300. They were rich. Snowy blinked as she gazed at the pile of crystals, and then she waved her paws and took all of them. Snowy cracked a smile and pulled Arya forward. A long time later, she stopped again. A ball of pure white light was floating before them. Arya blinked and asked, "What's that?" Snowy shook her head and waved her paw. The ball of white light immediately flew over to them. Snowy hesitated for a moment and patted it gently. In an instant, countless strands of spirit energy surged out of the white ball of light, and it was so much that it seemed boundless like a universe. A short while passed before Snowy lowered her paw, shuddered, and then sniffed the ball of light while holding it in her paws. Hiss! In an instant, countless strands of spirit energy surged into her. In just an instant, the spirit energy throughout the abyss world rapidly grew scarcer, and Snowy's eyes became a little more violet as well. Besides that, the white and fluffy tail behind her had gradually started to turn light violet. A short while passed before Arya patted Snowy on the head, and Snowy stopped. She gazed at Arya, and the latter spoke softly, "Snowy, take it slow. Don't overdo it." Snowy blinked, and then she passed the ball of light to Arya. Arya hesitated for a moment and sniffed lightly. Countless strands of spirit energy surged into Arya. Arya seemed like she'd gotten addicted and continued for around 10 minutes before her ears stood up. Moreover, the veins beneath the skin on her arms started to tremble. In the primordial pagoda, Oxy, the primal true dragon, the primal vicious tiger, and the martial Qilin suddenly looked up, and their eyes were filled with terror. Outside the crack, the middle-aged man who was teaching Xianxia and in Nanjing suddenly stopped, and then he looked toward the cracks. Awakening of the bloodline? Awakening of the bloodline? Xianxia was stunned, and then he vanished on the spot. The middle-aged man and a Nanjing followed after him. Deep within the cracks, when Xianxia and the others arrived before Snowy and Arya, the 2 little fellows were standing motionlessly by each other's side. As for the white ball of light, it wasn't there anymore. Arya and Snowy just gazed at them with an innocent look on their faces. The middle-aged man glanced at the surroundings, shook his head, and smiled. "You little fellow, you took all the world crystals that were condensed here over countless years. Forget it, those treasures are useless to me, so you can have them." Snowy blinked and acted as if she didn't know what he was saying, while frequently sneaking glances at Xianxia. Xianxia was quite embarrassed. It was obvious that Snowy had taken something. The middle-aged man waved his right hand, and then a white ball of light appeared in his grasp. Snowy was stunned by this, and then her eyes opened wide. She'd hit it well, so she wondered why the ball had come outside. She planned to take it back, but she discarded that thought when Xianxia glared at her. The middle-aged man glanced at the ball of light and said, "Spirit source. It's the spirit source of Abyss World. Simply speaking, it's the source of spirit energy in Abyss World." He gazed at Snowy and Arya before he continued, "The amount both of you absorbed earlier took practically half of all the spirit energy in the Abyss World. The spirit energy of half a world." Xianxia frowned slightly. "Senior, will that affect the Abyss World?" The middle-aged man smiled. "It's not a big deal. This world never had any life. Even if there are, It's life that comes from the outside world in search of treasures. He flicked the ball of light over to the two little fellows. You can have it. Snowy blinked. She didn't take it but gazed at Yang Yi instead. Yang Yi glared at her. Snowy cracked a smile at the sight of this and hurriedly put it away. The middle-aged man gazed at Arya. At this moment, she was very calm, and her veins had returned to normal too. He seemed to have thought of something as he gazed at her, and he gradually frowned. Arya glanced at him and just silently licked her tonghulu. A short while later, the middle-aged man spoke softly. Awakening is good too. The earlier you awaken, the stronger you'll be. However, don't lose the humanity you have right now. He gazed at Yang Yi at this point and said, if you want them to grow quickly, then help them find these sources of a world's energy. Of course, don't look for worlds that have countless lives on them. These things can't be taken rashly because it's very harmful to a world that loses it. As for places like Abyss World, it's fine to take it. Yang Yi nodded. I understand. Of course he wanted Snowy and Arya to grow quickly. He would never overlook their ability. If they grew, they would be extraordinary. The middle-aged man gazed at a Nanjing and said, come with me. He turned around and walked away. A Nanjing glanced at Yang Yi and followed the man. Meanwhile, the middle-aged man stopped and gazed at a Nanjing. You're on the path of the martial Dao, and it contains everything. The spear Dao is within the martial Dao too. My spear Dao is used based on belief. The stronger your belief, the stronger your spear will be. So long as your belief stands, your spear remains invincible. He stretched out his hand at this point, and a spear appeared there. He gazed at her and said, I only attack once with my spear. If my enemy doesn't die, then I die. The essence of my spear Dao is belief. At this point, he suddenly stabbed it forward. And Nanjing's pupils constricted, and she couldn't help but clench her fists. She reacted like she was facing a formidable enemy. It was the strongest spear attack she'd ever seen in her lifetime. It was very ordinary and didn't even glow, nor did it emanate any spear intent. However, it was exactly such an attack that aroused despair within her. She couldn't stop it. That was what she thought in the beginning. But a moment later, she knew she had to even if she couldn't. Being no match for the enemy was one thing, but not fighting back was a completely different thing. And Nanjing counterattacked. The middle-aged man smiled when he saw her attack. Because of a Nanjing, Yang Yi temporarily stayed in the Abyss World, and he seized this opportunity to cultivate like a madman. However, he didn't know that many were searching for him right now. Eternal Border. World Mountain. On the teleportation formation, a young man in white clothes suddenly appeared there. He seemed very weak and pale, and it was like a gust of wind could blow him away. The young man held a white staff in his grasp, and there was a dragon head on its top. Pure white dragon head. The young man walked off the teleportation platform, glanced at the surroundings, and closed his eyes slowly. Not here yet. As soon as he said that, an old man suddenly appeared before him, and the old man bowed slightly. Ninth Prince. The young man spoke indifferently. Did my brothers not act against the sprite progenitor? The old man shook his head. Prince Huang, you didn't go in search of Yang Yi, and he has gone to recruit experts throughout Eternal Border. He had 3-4 World Realm experts and around 6 more Peak 3 World Realm experts. As for Prince Huang Tianqing, I don't know how many 4 World Realm experts he has, but he has a 3 World Realm expert, the Yi Clan's Ego, and a 4 World Realm Ferocious Beast. The young man grinned. These 2 elder brothers of mine aren't ordinary. While the sprite progenitor is great, it's a hot potato. Anyone who touches it will get burnt. They refuse to touch it and are recruiting experts instead. Amazing! The old man lowered his head slightly. Ninth Prince, what do you plan to do? What do I plan? The man looked up at the sky. If they refuse to touch it, I will. Let me see if it can burn off my hand. The old man hesitated for a moment and said, Ninth Prince, that's... The young man smiled. It's fine. Let's go. He vanished on the spot once he finished speaking. The old man hesitated for a moment and followed after him. At the end of the eternal river, a white wall of light stood here, and there were 3 corpses before it. The corpses hadn't decayed, and they were looking ahead at the wall of light. It was the wall between universes. This wall blocked off the hopes of countless. There was a line of words by the wall. After all the trouble to get here, it actually only starts here. Suddenly, the wall trembled, and then a woman in white armor walked out from within. Her figure was tall, and she was extremely beautiful like a goddess. Once she appeared, 6 more people walked out from behind the wall of light. All of them wore white armor, had a short sword by their waists, and a spear on their backs. She glanced at the corpses and said, "See that? At most times, your birth decides your fate. All of you were absolutely lucky to be born in Eternal Kingdom. If you were born in Eternal Border, this is how it'll end for all of you." The 6 of them lowered their heads behind her and didn't dare to say anything. She looked into the distance. An endless river stood before them. She gazed at it for a while before she spoke indifferently. Heaven on one side, earth on the other. Life on one side, death on the other. She vanished on the spot once she finished speaking. The others vanished with her. At the other side of the eternal river, she soundlessly descended to the ground, and as soon as her group arrived here, an old man appeared in front of her. It was the guardian Xianxia. Xianxia glanced at her and spoke solemnly. "Are you from Eternal Kingdom?" She nodded. "Where's Yang Yi?" Xianxia spoke solemnly. "Eternal Border." She was about to leave when Xianxia suddenly said, "The desolate race has shown itself." She replied indifferently, "So what?" Xianxia looked her in the eyes. "Looks like Eternal Kingdom is very confident this time." She replied, "Eternal Kingdom isn't what it used to be. The humiliation we suffered all those years ago will be returned 100-fold. She and the other 6 of them vanished on the spot and shot toward Abyss World. Abyss World. In the primordial pagoda, Snowy went over to the 2 chaos fruit trees. She grinned as she gazed at them, and then she withdrew 2 world crystals and placed them below the trees. The trees trembled and started to absorb the crystals. The trees gradually grew slightly larger, and so did the 4 fruits. Besides that, another tiny fruit grew out of each of the trees. While these 2 new fruits were very small and just the size of a thumb, they had grown. Snowy's eyes lit up from the sight of this, and she hurriedly tossed 2 more world crystals below the trees. Once they finished absorbing the crystals, Snowy patted her paws together and pranced off into the distance. A short while later, she suddenly stopped and gazed at the trees. She blinked, glanced at the surroundings, and vanished on the spot when she failed to notice anything. Right after Snowy left, the trees trembled, and then 2 faint auras came from within them. They were very weak and tiny, but they were there. With Snowy's extravagant methods of fostering them, they had grown spirits. Outside the primordial pagoda, a group suddenly appeared outside the Abyss World. It was the group from Eternal Kingdom. The woman glanced at the surroundings and pressed her palm down. Bang! In an instant, the entire Abyss World shuddered, and it seemed like it was about to explode apart. A single attack capable of destroying a world. Peak 4 World Realm Expert. The woman shot an icy cold gaze down below and slowly clenched her fist. "Show yourself!" As soon as she finished speaking, she was about to fully clench her fist, but a middle-aged man appeared in front of her. There was a spear floating behind him. At the Abyss World, the woman gazed at the middle-aged man before her and frowned slightly. "Who are you?" The middle-aged man glanced at the woman's group, and then he took a step forward. A wave of pressure slammed down upon them. Bang! The woman was instantly blasted over 3 kilometers away. Their expressions changed drastically from this. The middle-aged man glanced indifferently at them. "Leave this place. Now." She bowed slightly to him. "Farewell." She didn't hesitate to leave with the others once she finished speaking. The middle-aged man glanced to the right. A sickly young man and an old man were there. It was the desolate race's 9th prince, Huang Ying. Huang Ying bowed slightly to the middle-aged man. "Farewell." He turned around and left with the old man. The middle-aged man turned around and left as well. Outside the abyss world. As soon as the group left the area, a wisp of blood seeped out from the corner of her mouth, and a solemn expression covered her face. It was extremely solemn. She glanced at the abyss world while fear filled her eyes. She was a Peak 4 World Realm expert, but she was very well aware that she would definitely die if the middle-aged man attacked her. His strength far surpassed her own. She closed her eyes slowly. I didn't expect such an expert. One of the experts behind her suddenly asked, "Is he above the Limit Breaker realm?" She shook her head. "He surpasses that. Surpasses it." Just that shocked all of them. Meanwhile, she suddenly said, "He may be even stronger than that." They were stunned, speechless. At the other side, Huang Ying stopped. At this moment, there was a solemn expression on his face and eyes too. His eyes narrowed slightly. "I didn't expect such an expert to be in this world." The old man spoke solemnly from behind him. "Does he surpass the Limit Breaker realm?" Huang Ying shook his head slightly. "I'm afraid that's not all." "That's not all." Huang Ying shot a glance downward. "It's fine. Let's just wait." He vanished on the spot with the old man. At the bottom of the abyss, the middle-aged man returned to Yang Yi and Nanjing. Yang Yi hesitated for a moment and said, "Sorry for causing you trouble." The middle-aged man shook his head. "That isn't trouble. They aren't qualified to be considered that." Yang Yi was stunned, speechless. The middle-aged man continued, "Let me emphasize one last time. You must never forget that your objective is the stellar ocean, and your enemies are none other than yourselves. A person's greatest enemy in life is themselves. I've seen many experts, including Wu and I and the owner of Executor. All of them lost to themselves." "They lost to themselves?" Yang Yi frowned slightly. "What do you mean?" The middle-aged man smiled. "You'll understand one day." He gazed at Nanjing and continued, 3 days, that's enough for you to inherit everything I know. At that time, you can leave." She nodded. After that, Nanjing started learning everything from the middle-aged man while Yang Yi cultivated madly. Flying swords. Yang Ye's focus was on his flying swords, sword domain, and madness intent. Madness intent. It was quite an intriguing form of intent because its strength was determined by how insane he was. The more insane he got, the stronger it would be, and the clearer his mind was, the weaker it would be. It could be said that if he entered into a mad state, the strength of his flying swords and sword domain would improve by around 50%. Simply speaking, if he used Executor right now, he was barely strong enough to fight a 4-world realm expert. However, if he used his madness intent, then he wasn't any weaker to a 4-world realm expert and may even be able to kill such experts. Unfortunately, he couldn't control it. In the primordial pagoda, while Yang Yi and Nanjing were cultivating, Snowy wasn't relaxing either. However, she didn't cultivate. Every day, she would go to the rear mountains of the Sword Sect, where the 2 chaotic fruit trees were. Now, she didn't just use primordial violet energy and eternal energy to nurture them. She used eternal world crystals and her own unique spirit energy too. It could be said that not to mention those chaotic fruit trees, even a pig could be nurtured into a primal demon if it was nurtured like this. The chaotic fruit trees were growing taller and larger. At this moment, they were around 1.5 m tall, and there were 6 fruits on them. 4 of the fruits were the size of an adult's fist, and they were ripe. As for the other 2, they were still quite small. Actually, the chaotic fruits could be said to have been forcefully matured and ripened by Snowy with the help of various types of energy. Snowy revealed a brilliant smile when she saw that 4 of them had ripened. So, she called Oxy the Primal Vicious Tiger, Marshall Chelan Primal True Dragon, and Arya over. They couldn't help but stare when they saw the 2 trees. Arya blinked, walked over to Snowy's side, and patted Snowy's little tail. "Snowy, well done." Snowy cracked a smile and waved her little paw. The 4 ripe fruits fell off the trees and flew over to Snowy. Snowy sniffed them lightly, and then she passed one to Arya. Arya gazed at Snowy. "Is this for me?" Snowy nodded. Arya hesitated for a moment and spoke very seriously. "Snowy, you're a really good friend. I'm very poor now, so I have nothing to give you. But don't worry, Your problems are my problems from now on. Snowy cracked a smile, and then she raised the fruit at Arya again. Arya didn't refuse it and accepted it. As she gazed at it, a smile curled up on her lips. Presently, she really needed all sorts of natural treasures, but only divine treasures like the chaotic fruit were up to her standards. After she gave one of the fruits to Arya, Snowy brought one to Oxy and passed it to Oxy. The latter glanced at Snowy, hesitated for a moment, and took it. Snowy gazed at the primal true dragon, and then she flicked one over to it. The primal true dragon gazed at Snowy for a long time, and then it nodded and took the fruit. There was one last fruit. Snowy put the fruit away. However, she didn't forget the primal vicious tiger and martial Qilin. Snowy pointed at them and then pointed at the two trees. There were two more fruits there, so she was telling them to wait until those fruits ripened. The primal vicious tiger and martial Qilin glanced at the fruits and nodded. They were satisfied as long as they got one. Moreover, those two fruits weren't very far off from ripening. It would take a few days at most. Arya and the others ate their fruits, and then they returned to their own territories. In an instant, numerous unstable auras arose within the pagoda. As for Snowy, she took the last fruit to the mountain where Zir lived. Zir grinned when she saw Snowy and embraced Snowy. Snowy raised the fruit in her direction. Zir gazed at it in silence. After she consumed that piece of fruit the other day, she'd attained the World Lord realm. Just a single part of a fruit had allowed her to jump through so many realms of cultivation. Now she had a whole fruit. If she consumed it, she would definitely attain the Limit Breaker realm and may even attain the Two-World realm. Zir didn't hesitate to take it. Once she saw Zir consume the fruit, Snowy pranced off into the distance. In the hall, a powerful aura surged out of Zir's body. Outside the hall, Snowy gazed into the sky, and then a wisp of bewilderment gradually appeared in her eyes. Snowy was getting more and more sensible in the end. Recruiting demons, nurturing the chaotic fruit trees, and searching for treasures. Some would think Snowy was just being mischievous. But in actuality, weren't all of her actions helping Xianxia in their own way? A short while passed before Snowy shook her head and vanished into the distance. She went to the second level of the primordial pagoda. In the cultivation room, Snowy floated in midair while the primordial acts of creation, true energy mirror, seal of suppression, myriad world diagram, sword supreme, sword precursor, sword gourd, and eternal energy floated before her. Besides executor, all Xianxia's treasures were here. Snowy glanced at them, and then she grabbed the eternal energy and swallowed it. She was nurturing it. She planned to nurture it herself, because she felt that Xianxia took too long. Actually, it wasn't that Xianxia was slow, it was she who was too fast. Once it entered her body, the eternal energy started to circulate madly within her. It was excited. It was extremely excited. Even though eternal energy was very rare, it was just a strand of energy before Snowy. Snowy patted her stomach to tell the eternal energy to be quiet, and it didn't take long for it to quiet down. Snowy gazed at the divine treasures before her. She glanced left and right, and in the end, she just opened her mouth. In an instant, countless strands of pure spirit energy surged out like a torrent toward them. Sprite Ascension. Since Snowy discovered that she could make them grow in strength, she'd been helping them with Sprite Ascension from time to time. All of these treasures were Xianxia's, so the stronger they became, the better it would be for Xianxia. Even though Snowy couldn't improve these divine treasures to become super divine treasures, she could make them approach that level. Just like that, days went by. In the blink of an eye, it had been 3 days. At the bottom of the abyss world, Xianxia and a Nanjing bowed slightly to the middle-aged man, and the latter roared with laughter. Meanwhile, the spear behind him suddenly appeared in front of a Nanjing. A Nanjing gazed at the middle-aged man, and the latter smiled. It has no name, but people call it nameless. It has been with me for many years. While I do not need any treasures anymore, I couldn't bear to leave it behind, so I've been keeping it with me. Now it's yours. And Nanjing hesitated for a moment, and then she nodded and put it away. The spear seemed to tremble in response. Xianxia gazed at the middle-aged man, Farewell. The middle-aged man smiled. Go on. I have a guest. Yang Yi nodded and gazed at Nanjing. The latter bowed to the middle-aged man like a disciple would bow to their master. And then she left with Yang Yi. Not long after they left, a sword cultivator in a cloud-white robe and a sword in his grasp walked into the abyss world. She went to the middle-aged man. The sword cultivator gazed at the middle-aged man for a short while and shook his head. What a pity! The middle-aged man smiled. I can still fight, can't I? The sword cultivator nodded. Do it! The middle-aged man smiled and looked up at the sky. You know, during that chaotic time, if it were in terms of the spear Tao, then destiny may have had 70% of it, but I had the other 30%. All those years ago, I too was once unmatched. As soon as he finished speaking, his figure suddenly shook, and then a spear gradually appeared from within his forehead. An instant later, a spear was pointed at the sword cultivator. This spear contained too many things. As soon as it appeared, the entire abyss world instantly turned ethereal, and then it vanished completely like it had evaporated. The entire abyss world was gone. Could endure the strength of this attack. Meanwhile, the sword cultivator drew his sword. Hiss! The sound of something being torn apart resounded, and then the space before the sword cultivator was sliced open. An instant later, the middle-aged man's figure turned ethereal. The sword cultivator sheathed his sword and walked away. Meanwhile, the middle-aged man suddenly said, Someone like you shouldn't exist in this world. The sword cultivator stopped. All of you aren't from this world. The middle-aged man nodded. We aren't. The sword cultivator said. Based on your main body's strength, there should be very few capable of killing you. So, how did you die? The middle-aged man smiled. This is how the world is. You think you're very strong, but there are those who are stronger. There's always someone stronger, right? The sword cultivator glanced at the surroundings. I hope someone can defeat me. Only defeat can allow me to locate new flaws in myself. Unfortunately, I've gone in search of many, but none have been able to defeat me. As far as I'm concerned, the moment I'm defeated is the moment my sword Tao begins. The middle-aged man fell silent for a short while and said, You will. The sword cultivator nodded. I hope it happens soon. Otherwise, this life and sword Tao are too meaningless. The sword cultivator vanished once he finished speaking. The middle-aged man glanced in the direction the sword cultivator had vanished. He's really strong. As soon as he finished speaking, the middle-aged man's figure gradually turned ethereal, and then it vanished completely. Not long after Yang Yi left the abyss world, a young man and an old man appeared before him. The young man was Huang Ying. Huang Ying grinned. Can we talk? Yang Yi replied indifferently. What do you think? Huang Ying smiled. One more friend is better than another enemy. Don't you think so too? Yang Yi nodded. Then let's talk. Huang Ying gestured at Yang Yi to follow him. Please come with me. Yang Yi glanced at Huang Ying and was about to go when he suddenly looked into the distance. A woman was leading 6 other men in white armor toward them. It didn't take long for the woman to stop. She glanced at Yang Yi. She belongs to Eternal Kingdom. Yang Yi replied indifferently. And I think you belong to me. So do you belong to me because of that? She replied. I belong to you? If you have the strength, then so what if I do? Yang Yi smiled. All right, let me guess. You're an unfamiliar face, so you probably aren't from Eternal Border. If I'm not wrong, you should be from Eternal Kingdom, right? She nodded and walked over to Yang Yi. The sprite progenitor belongs to Eternal Kingdom. Give her to me. She'll be safer there, and her life will be better. At least it'll be better than staying with you. Yang Yi smiled and gazed at Huang Ying. What do you think about that? Huang Ying smiled. Brother Yang, that's terrible of you. You want us to fight to the death, and then you'll flee with the sprite progenitor. Brother Yang, that won't work. Yang Yi smiled. Did you say it's better to have a friend? Now it's time to prove if we're friends. Huang Ying gazed at Yang Yi for a long time and smiled. All right. As soon as he finished speaking, he glanced at the woman. If I were you, I'd leave right now. She didn't speak and just charged at Yang Yi. Because they were very close, it only took an instant for her to appear before Yang Yi. An instant later, countless golden threads rained down upon Yang Yi like a storm. It was extremely fast to the point they instantly enveloped Yang Yi. Meanwhile, a sword howl resounded. Boom! An explosion resounded, and the golden threads dispersed. The woman moved around 30 m back, but it only took a moment for the space around Yang Yi to crack open, and then countless golden threads shot out from the cracks toward Yang Yi. Yang Yi swung his sword horizontally. Boom! The golden threads were blasted away again, but a powerful aura swept over immediately. Yang Yi stabbed his sword forward. Bang! Yang Yi and the woman moved backward repeatedly. They stopped after being pushed around 30 m back each. Yang Yi stood there with his sword in hand while golden threads floated behind the woman. However, they were broken. She glanced at the sword in Yang Ye's grasp. What a great sword! Her pupils suddenly constricted at this point. Impossible! It's that sword! Yang Yi grinned, and then he vanished on the spot. A moment later, a brilliant ray of sword energy slashed down from above her. The sword domain. For swings. The woman's pupils constricted at the sight of the sword energy, and she pressed her palm down slightly. In an instant, countless threads of golden light swept out from her. Bang! The sword descended. The woman and the golden light were instantly blasted over 10 kilometers away. As soon as she stopped herself, the golden light exploded apart, and she was pushed over 30 m back. Once she finally stopped herself, blood seeped out of the corner of her mouth. Huang Ying glanced at Yang Yi and grinned. Brother Yang, that's quite some strength you have. Yang Yi ignored him and was about to attack. Suddenly, the woman soared up into the air, and then an ethereal spear condensed in her grasp. An instant later, she shot at him with the spear. Yang Yi tightened his grip on his sword, and then he drew it. Hiss! Along with the sound of something being torn open, two figures were blasted away. They were Yang Yi and the woman, and they only stopped after being pushed around 300 m back. They gazed at each other from afar. Yang Yi took a step back and swung his sword. Hiss! A brilliant ray of sword energy shot forward. The woman stretched out her hand and twisted it slightly. Hiss! The space before her exploded apart, and then a wave of powerful energy rippled out from there. Boom! 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 The sky exploded apart, and then a ray of sword energy and golden light slammed against each other in the black hole. Just like that, the sky rippled for almost 15 minutes before finally calming down. Yang Yi and the woman stood far apart from each other within the black hole. She gazed at Yang Yi while feeling slight shock. She hadn't expected him to fight her equally. After all, her cultivation far surpassed Yang Ye's, and she was from Eternal Kingdom. The civilization of cultivation there was far superior than what it was here. But at this moment, she had no confidence in being able to defeat this young sword cultivator who stood before her. Yang Yi closed his eyes slowly. The peak of the four-world realm. She was at least a peak four-world realm expert. While he hadn't used all his trump cards, he'd used his full strength, yet he still couldn't do anything to her. There was quite a gap between him and a peak four-world realm expert. This battle allowed him to gain a rough understanding of his strength. Yang Yi looked up at her, and she raised her right hand before lightly bringing it down. The 6 experts in white armor vanished on the spot behind her. An instant later, Yang Yi sensed 6 powerful auras before him. For World Realm experts. All the auras belonged to 4 World Realm experts. While they were slightly weaker than the woman, their joint forces were extremely terrifying, and their auras almost suffocated Yang Yi. He felt suffocated. The woman clearly planned to gang up on him and stop fighting him in single combat. After all, it was a waste of time and energy. Yang Ye's eyes narrowed slightly when facing these 6 powerful auras, and he was about to attack. However, Huang Ying and the old man suddenly appeared by his sides. Huang Ying grinned and waved his right hand. In an instant, a ray of pitch-black light rippled out of his palm. Meanwhile, the old man suddenly raised his hands and pressed them down. Yang Yi didn't stand by idly. He too swung his sword. A powerful strand of sword intent rippled out. Their joint forces were able to forcefully fend off the pressure from those 6 experts. Moreover, those 6 experts were even pushed back. Once they succeeded at doing that, Huang Ying glanced at Yang Yi and left. Yang Yi left with them. In an instant, they vanished into the distance. Huang Ying's intentions were clear. He helped push them back, but he wouldn't help Yang Yi fight them to the death. If Yang Yi didn't leave, he would abandon Yang Yi. He didn't want to be used by Yang Yi. Yang Yi naturally understood that, and he was very well aware that his own strength wasn't sufficient to kill them. So he'd decisively chosen to leave. The 6 experts were about to give chase, but the woman stopped them. She gazed at the direction they'd fled toward for a very long time, and then she said, "Ask for a 5-world realm expert to be sent here." One of them hesitated for a moment and asked, "Is that necessary?" She glanced coldly at that expert. "If we don't annihilate someone like him, he'll become a huge threat in the future. Moreover, the situation in Eternal Border is complicated, and the desolate race has shown itself. So we don't have any advantage." She looked up into the distant sky. "The sprite progenitor must come under our control." She turned around and walked away. Suddenly, a sword cultivator in a cloud-white robe appeared nearby. She stopped and glanced at him. He seemed very ordinary, and there was nothing outstanding about him. He glanced at her and asked, "Is Eternal Kingdom to the right?" She replied indifferently, "You want to go to Eternal Kingdom?" He nodded. "I want to have a look." She shook her head. "Don't." He was puzzled. "Why?" She looked him in the eyes. "You're not qualified." Not qualified. As far as she was concerned, if someone from Eternal Border wanted to enter Eternal Kingdom, it was as difficult as ascending the heavens. At the very least, one had to be at the peak of the 5-world realm or even higher to be qualified. But what ability did this sword cultivator possess? Actually, she knew that some people returned to simplicity. Some seemed ordinary, but they weren't ordinary at all. Those people had returned to simplicity. They were simple yet unordinary, normal yet extraordinary. However, she didn't think anyone in Eternal Border could accomplish that to the point she couldn't discern it. It was absolutely impossible for such an expert to exist in Eternal Border. The sword cultivator glanced at her and asked, "What do I need to be qualified?" She grinned. "Defeat me and you're barely qualified." As soon as she said that, a sword was against her throat. Everyone here was stunned, including the woman. Her figure stiffened on the spot. One swing of the sword. She'd seen the attack, and it was a very ordinary attack, but she hadn't been able to avoid it. He glanced at her and said, "Don't you know how weak you are?" He lowered his sword and left. They watched as he gradually vanished into the distance. The woman's face was extremely unsightly. A long time passed before she closed her eyes. "Ask for a 5-world realm expert to get here immediately. Tell them if it's allowed. It's best to send an expert above the limit breaker realm." She was truly quite afraid now. Eternal Border wasn't as simple as she'd thought. Meanwhile, Yang Yi and Huang Ying stopped at the peak of a mountain. Huang Ying sat down cross-legged by the edge of it and looked ahead. Yang Yi stood at the side while the old man remained not too far behind them. Huang Ying pointed ahead. "Brother Yang, war will spread through this world soon, and then it will vanish from history." Yang Yi replied indifferently, "What does that have to do with me?" Huang Ying was stunned. He glanced at Yang Yi and chuckled. "You really aren't ordinary. Then let's speak about what's related to you. For example, that little fellow in you. Brother Yang, do you think that you can keep her safe?" Yang Yi replied, "I'll do it even if I can't." Huang Ying smiled. "According to my knowledge, the Eternal Kingdom has an Eternal Lord now, and that Eternal Lord has converged all the powers in Eternal Kingdom. Soon, the walls between Eternal Kingdom and Eternal Border will be broken, and you will realize that 4-world and 5-world realm experts will be numerous like ants." Yang Yi remained silent. He was very well aware that Huang Ying wasn't trying to scare him. Once Eternal Border and the desolate race became serious, he wouldn't be able to resist any of them. A short while later, Yang Yi shook his head and smiled. When had he ever been in a good situation? The stronger he got, the stronger his enemies were. His life had rarely been calm. Huang Ying suddenly said, "Looks like you're very well aware of the situation that you're in." Yang Yi glanced at him. "Tell me why you're here." Huang Ying smiled. "To work together." "Work together." Yang Yi frowned slightly. "How?" Huang Ying smiled. "Brother Yang, the sprite progenitor isn't as important to my desolate race as it is to Eternal Kingdom. My desolate race has merely come here because we don't want the sprite progenitor to fall into the Eternal Kingdom's hands. After all, we don't want history to repeat itself. Of course, if we can obtain the sprite progenitor, then it's even better. However, even if we can't obtain it, we can accept any outcome where the sprite progenitor doesn't fall into Eternal Kingdom's possession." He gazed into the distance and continued, "So, that's why we were given the order to either get it or kill it." Yang Yi said, "Tell me about our cooperation." Huang Ying smiled. "It's very simple. Help me become the crown prince of the desolate race. So long as I succeed, I'll make the desolate race give up on the sprite progenitor. Of course, the precondition is that you can't allow that little fellow to help Eternal Kingdom. Besides that, if I'm the crown prince, I won't let the desolate race harm any sprites of Eternal Kingdom in the future." Yang Yi spoke indifferently. "According to my knowledge, the desolate race has a patriarch." Huang Ying smiled. "The crown prince is the next patriarch and possesses a very, very great level of authority. Moreover, that patriarch of ours will only show himself when necessary. As far as he's concerned, Eternal Kingdom and everything else are beneath him. Otherwise, if he came from the sprite progenitor now, do you think anyone could stop him?" Yang Yi remained silent. Huang Ying chuckled. "His gaze has gone beyond Eternal Kingdom a long time ago. After the battle all those years ago, he has never managed anything anymore. So, the crown prince has a huge amount of authority." Yang Yi thought for a moment and said, "What do you need to become the crown prince?" Huang Ying stood up and gazed into the distance. "Only 3 people have the right to vie for the position of crown prince. My eldest brother, Huang Yi, and I. The condition given to us was that whoever gets the sprite progenitor becomes the crown prince. However, so long as my eldest brother and Huang Yi lose, I'll be the crown prince even if I don't have the sprite progenitor." He gazed at Yang Yi and continued, "Moreover, if you take my side, then to a certain extent, the sprite progenitor would be on my side. So, if you agree to take my side and I get back safely, then I would have won." Yang Yi asked, "Is it that simple?" "Simple?" Huang Ying shook his head and smiled. "Brother Yang, because our patriarch has been in closed-door cultivation, many smaller groups have formed. For example, some support me, some support my eldest brother, and some support Huang Yi. That's why the patriarch stepped forward and said the crown prince would be the person who brought back the sprite progenitor." He gazed at Yang Yi and continued, "The weight of those words is extremely great. So long as I return home and you take my side, then I'll be the crown prince. At that time, my eldest brother and Huang Yi will have no choice but to obey me. Otherwise, I can end their lives with a single command." Yang Yi spoke solemnly. "In other words, once I take your side, it's impossible for you to return safely, right?" Huang Ying nodded. "They will attack madly. Moreover, the resources available to my eldest brother and Huang Yi are extremely terrifying." He walked over to Yang Yi and continued, "Brother Yang, have you decided?" Yang Yi thought for a long time and nodded. "All right, I'll do it." Huang Yi grinned, and then he raised his palm in Yang Yi's direction. Yang Yi stretched out his hand as well. They struck their palms together to form their alliance. As far as Yang Yi was concerned, there was no disadvantage. While helping Huang Ying meant he would have to face Huang Tianxing, Huang Yi, and the forces that stood behind them. But if he didn't help, he would still have to face them. Moreover, he would have to face Huang Ying too. Besides that, he would have to face the experts of Eternal Kingdom and Eternal Border. Choosing to work together with Huang Ying was equivalent to dragging Huang Ying into all of it. Simply speaking, they would have to face everything together. That was naturally a good thing for him. Huang Ying smiled. "Then I'll be troubling you with sending me home." Yang Yi glanced at the old man behind them and said, I'm sure you have a backup plan, right? Huang Ying nodded. Of course. However, my eldest brother and Huang Yi have one too. Once you take my side, it's very likely that they will join forces. So, you have to be mentally prepared for it. Yang Yi didn't say anything. He just withdrew the myriad world diagram. Huang Ying's eyes lit up when he saw it. Is that a myriad world diagram? Yang Yi nodded. Huang Ying nodded. I didn't expect you to have a treasure like that. Yang Yi glanced at it, and it didn't take long for him to see desolate world to the right. Yang Yi gazed at Huang Ying. We can go now. Huang Ying shook his head. Brother Yang, you can try it for yourself. Yang Yi glanced at Huang Ying and placed his hand on the desolate world. As soon as he did that, Yang Ye's expression changed drastically, and he pulled his hand back. A wisp of blood seeped out from the corner of Yang Ye's mouth. Yang Yi gazed at Huang Ying, and the latter spoke solemnly. As expected. Yang Yi frowned slightly. What do you mean? Huang Ying spoke solemnly. Many years ago, an old man came to Desolate World and requested to put it on the myriad world diagram. We refused, but for some reason our patriarch personally agreed to it. However, he had a request, and it was that only the old man could use the myriad world diagram to enter Desolate World. So, it can be considered to be the old man's personal travel pass. Yang Yi frowned slightly. So, we can't teleport there? Huang Ying nodded. Yang Yi fell silent for a long time and glanced at the surroundings. Then let's go. Huang Ying smiled. All right. The three of them immediately vanished on the spot. The Desolate World. Yang Yi and Huang Ying's alliance was quickly known by everyone, and they hadn't tried to keep it concealed either, because everyone in Eternal Border had their eyes on Yang Yi, so they knew everything he did. At a certain point in space, Huang Tianxing suddenly stopped. He closed his eyes slowly, and a long time passed before he suddenly said, Kill! At a boundless mountain range, Huang Yi suddenly stopped on the spot for a while. Suddenly, he started laughing. Ninth brother. Oh, ninth brother. You're truly brave. How could eldest brother and I not have thought of that? We thought of it, but we didn't dare to do it. Yet you actually did so. Since you've done it, let me see how strong you truly are. As soon as he finished speaking, he turned around and vanished into the sky with his group, Myriad World Mountain. As soon as Yang Ye's group entered Myriad World Mountain, a middle-aged man in a white robe suddenly appeared in front of them. The middle-aged man glanced at them and smiled. I've been waiting for you. He gazed at Yang Yi and continued. I'm Xiao Shenwu. You may have heard of me. I want to borrow that sprite progenitor of yours. You don't have any objections to that, right? Yang Yi looked him in the eyes and said, Firstly, I've never heard of you. Secondly, I have a huge objection to that. Ha ha. Xiao Shenwu roared with laughter, and he laughed for a while before he shook his head. I've not been in Eternal Border for many years. I didn't expect even a junior of Eternal Border to be so arrogant. Looks like I'll have to speak with my fists. Xiao Shenwu vanished on the spot once he finished speaking, and then a fist slammed down at Yang Ye's head. The space around him exploded apart while a wave of powerful force seemed on the verge of obliterating Yang Yi. Peak 4 World Realm Expert. Just that punch alone gave Yang Yi a rough estimate of Xiao Shenwu's strength. Xiao Shenwu's strength was on par with that woman from Eternal Kingdom. Yang Yi raised his sword and swung it. The sword domain. For overlapped swings. Xiao Shenwu was instantly blasted over 1 kilometer away. Presently, swinging his sword 4 times with the sword domain didn't take too much strength. Of course, the most important reason was because of the Eternal World Crystals. Now that he had them, he could replenish any consumption of spirit energy. Xiao Shenwu glanced at his fist, and there was a very deep blood-red mark there. It was a mark from a sword. Xiao Shenwu glanced at the sword in Yang Ye's grasp. What a sword! You... Suddenly, Yang Yi vanished on the spot, and he was in front of Xiao Shenwu when he appeared again. Yang Ye's sword descended. For swings again. Xiao Shenwu's eyes narrowed slightly. There was no disdain left in them as well. He clenched his right fist, and his profound energy surged madly before he slammed it forward. Boom! An explosion resounded, and Xiao Xinwu was blasted away again. Suddenly, two flying swords flashed. Flying swords. Hiss! Hiss! They intersected together as they passed. At this moment, Xiao Xinwu was already 3 kilometers away. However, there were 2 striking blood-red marks on both sides of his neck. It had been left there by those flying swords. Huang Ying glanced at Yang Yi, and he was quite shocked. Yang Yi kept surprising him, like the myriad world diagram and executor, and now these 2 flying swords. Xiao Xinwu gazed at Yang Yi for a long time and said, "The younger generation really does surpass those who come before them." As soon as he finished speaking, Xiao Xinwu suddenly soared up into the air, and then the space around him warped into a strange curve, and then he stretched out his right hand and pressed it down at Yang Yi from afar. The space where Yang Yi stood was pressed down, and a powerful wave of energy seemed to be on the verge of mincing Yang Yi into bits. It was so strong that even Yang Yi was quite shocked by it. It could be said that the energy wasn't any inferior to his 4 swings with the sword domain. It wasn't ordinary at all. Yang Yi didn't dare act carelessly. He took a step forward and stabbed with his sword. Hiss! His sword pierced through space. Bang! The space in front of him suddenly collapsed and exploded apart, causing a wave of powerful force to ripple toward the surroundings. At the same time, Xiao Xinwu was blasted around 300 m away, and Yang Yi was pushed 300 m back too. They were equally matched. Suddenly, Yang Yi vanished on the spot, and then a ray of light descended from above Xiao Xinwu. 5 swings with the sword domain. All 5 swings descended. Boom! The space in a huge area exploded apart and was obliterated until only deathly silence remained. As for Xiao Xinwu, he'd gone over 30 kilometers back. As soon as he stopped there, a wisp of blood seeped out from the corner of his mouth, and then his entire left arm fell off his shoulder. Xiao Xinwu shot an icy-cold glance at Yang Yi, and then he turned around and vanished into the distance. Yang Yi didn't pursue him. At this moment, Yang Yi wasn't in very good condition himself. After all, 5 swings exhausted a very, very huge amount of his strength. He'd had the upper hand in the battle, and he could be said to have won. But winning was one thing, killing Xiao Xinwu was another thing. He could defeat Xiao Xinwu, but he couldn't kill him. Huang Ying glanced at Yang Yi. "Brother Yang, are you all right?" Yang Yi shook his head. "I'm fine." Huang Ying nodded. "Then let's go. We're heading to Hell World first." Yang Yi gazed at him. "Hell World?" Huang Ying smiled. "We have to pass through Hell World. That's the only way to the desolate world." He hesitated for a moment and continued, "Are you really all right?" Yang Yi replied with a question. "Do you think I'm not?" Huang Ying grinned. "That's good to hear. If anything happens next, I'll deal with it." Yang Yi smiled. "Of course." Huang Ying nodded, and then he entered a teleportation formation. Yang Yi walked in after him. Not long after they entered the teleportation formation, a group of people arrived here. It was the group from Eternal Kingdom, and they were led by that woman. She gazed at the teleportation formation for a long time, and then she said, "Follow them, but don't attack." As soon as she gave the order, 3 of the armored experts by her side vanished on the spot. She glanced coldly at the teleportation formation and vanished into the distance. Once her group left, Huang Yi suddenly appeared on World Mountain. He shot a glance in the direction her group had left toward. Interesting. He gazed at the teleportation formation once he finished speaking. "Ninth brother. Oh, ninth brother. Let me see how you get back home. After all, the D-clan wants the sprite progenitor too. Let me see how you get through all of this." Once he finished speaking, he entered the teleportation formation with his group. After Huang Ye's group had left, a man in a luxurious robe appeared here. There was a middle-aged man behind him and a small pitch-black demon beast by his side. It was Huang Tianxing. Huang Tianxing glanced at the surroundings, and then some of the auras in the vicinity moved away. "Eldest Prince," Yigo suddenly said, "if Huang Ying is allowed to return." Huang Tianxing shook his head. "He won't be able to. Anyone who gets close to Yang Yi will die. As soon as he finished speaking, he appeared in the teleportation formation. The demon beast and Yi Go hurried after him. Hell world. A long time passed before Yang Yi opened his eyes, and he wasn't in the teleportation passageway anymore. At this moment, they were on a boundless mountain range, and a teleportation formation stood behind them. Suddenly, a middle-aged man appeared before them, and he gazed at Yang Yi. You! Yang Yi glanced at the middle-aged man, and it didn't take long for him to recall the man. When he came to Hell World with Wu and I that day, this middle-aged man had stepped forward to stop them. He was the guardian of the Hell World. The middle-aged man's gaze moved to Huang Ying, and the latter flicked a black command token over. There was a pitch black character on it. The desolate race. The middle-aged man's eyes narrowed slightly, and then he flicked it back to Huang Ying. Huang Ying put it away and gazed at Yang Yi. Brother Yang, let's go. Yang Yi nodded. Wait. Suddenly, the middle-aged man gazed at Yang Yi. You don't seem to be from the desolate race. Yang Yi nodded. I'm not. The middle-aged man spoke indifferently. If you're not, then please leave the Hell World. Yang Yi was about to speak when Huang Ying suddenly said, He's a friend of mine, and he's coming to Desolate World with me. The middle-aged man glanced at Huang Ying. The Hell World has its own rules. Rules? Huang Ying walked over to him. You're talking about rules to me? The middle-aged man's eyes narrowed slightly. This is the Hell World, not the Desolate World. And you're not the Desolate Race's crown prince. Huang Ying smiled. So you plan to interfere in the fight for the position of crown prince? The middle-aged man replied indifferently. I don't know what you're talking about. Huang Ying grinned, and then his smile suddenly became cold. Kill him! As soon as he gave the order, the middle-aged man's expression changed drastically. He was about to defend himself when two black shadows flashed out from behind him, and then a terrifying aura and pressure surged out from the middle-aged man. Boom! Boom! Two muffled explosions resounded, and the middle-aged man was blasted away. Meanwhile, another black ray of light shot up and slammed against him. Bang! The middle-aged man's body exploded apart, but his soul survived. However, another ray of black light shot up into the air at it. The middle-aged man's pupils constricted on his soul when he witnessed this. Suddenly, a speck of cold light slammed against the black light. Bang! Both of them exploded apart. Meanwhile, an old man appeared here. He glanced at Yang Yi and Huang Ying, and then he said, Ning Prince, forgive me for this disturbance. Huang Ying grinned. Are you apologizing? The old man spoke solemnly. Ninth Prince, can we let bygones be bygones? Huang Ying roared with laughter and shook his head. Hiss! Numerous rays of black light shot up into the air. The old man's eyes narrowed slightly, and he was about to do something when a few auras slammed down upon him. Just this short delay caused the middle-aged man's soul to be blasted into bits by the rays of black light. He was obliterated. The old man's face instantly turned gloomy from the sight of this. Meanwhile, Huang Ying grinned. He wanted to take sides. Unfortunately, he took the wrong side. He gazed at Yang Yi and continued, Brother Yang, let's go. Once he finished speaking, he waved his right hand, and the black shadows in the surroundings left. A short while later, they had soundlessly vanished from everyone's fields of vision. Yang Yi glanced at the surroundings and felt quite surprised. He hadn't sensed them before this. He hadn't sensed them at all. Yang Yi didn't think too much about it and was about to leave with Huang Ying. However, something unexpected occurred. The space around him exploded apart, and then 4 pitch-black fists blasted out from within the spatial rifts. Yang Ye's expression changed slightly, and then he waved his sword in a sweeping motion. Hiss! The powerful force contained within the fists instantly blasted Yang Yi away, and as his figure flew through the air, a spear tore through space as it shot at him. Yang Yi swung his sword again. Bang! The spear was instantly slashed into 2. However, a ray of cold light soundlessly appeared behind Yang Yi. Yang Yi turned around abruptly, and his eyes narrowed slightly when he saw the person behind him. You! As soon as he finished speaking, he swung his sword. Bang! A ray of light rippled out, and the figure before Yang Yi was blasted over 10 kilometers away. However, the ray of cold light left a blood-red mark on his throat. It wasn't deep and had barely cut through his skin. Yang Yi recognized the person before him. It was someone he'd met in Divine Martial World. It was Senior Heaven, who'd been a subordinate of the woman, Aling. The old man had even fought in Nanjing that day. Yang Yi glanced coldly at the old man. Obviously, the power which stood behind that mysterious woman wanted Snowy too. The desire to kill surged in his eyes when he thought up to this point. Yang Yi stomped his right foot down, and the space in a huge area seemed like it had been struck by a sledgehammer and shook violently. As for Yang Yi himself, he'd vanished on the spot, and then a brilliant ray of sword energy shot forward like a bolt of lightning. Everywhere it passed, space was obliterated. Senior Heaven's expression changed drastically, and he pressed both his palms forward. A wave of powerful black light swept out like a wave and rippled forward incessantly, causing the space in the entire air to ripple as if it was boiling. Meanwhile, Yang Ye's sword arrived. Hiss! It sliced through the black light as if it was slicing through tofu. An instant later, it slashed through the old man's body. The surroundings fell silent. Yang Yi sheathed his sword behind the old man, and the instant it entered the sheath, the old man's body was split open from the center and internal organs sprayed to the ground. Meanwhile, the other 4 mysterious figures who'd attacked him earlier had retreated a long time ago after Huang Ying's group had helped him keep them away. Yang Yi gazed at Huang Ying, and the latter spoke softly. The D clan. Yang Yi was puzzled. The D clan. Huang Ying nodded. It was the D clan who just attacked you. You may not be aware of them, but they were one of the 3 top clans in Eternal Kingdom. However, along with the war between my desolate race and Eternal Kingdom, the latter fell into chaos, and the other 2 clans joined forces to drive the D clan out at the critical moment of the battle against my desolate race. He grinned. It's understandable that they want the sprite progenitor, and their attack was within my expectations. Yang Yi spoke solemnly. Has the D clan and desolate race joined forces? Huang Ying smiled. Not really. We're just temporarily working together. The D clan has always desired to avenge themselves for what happened. As for the sprite progenitor, they naturally want it in their possession. After all, if they possess the sprite progenitor, they would have a greater advantage over us when we work together. It's not just us. Even Eternal Kingdom wasn't it, because countless powers throughout Eternal Kingdom would only take their side once they have the sprite progenitor. The sprite progenitor. Yang Yi shook his head. Snowy. Oh, Snowy. You're like a delicious dish that everyone wants. As if she'd sensed Yang Ye's thoughts, Snowy suddenly appeared on Yang Ye's shoulder, and as soon as she appeared, countless divine senses in the surroundings surged over to her like a storm. They did it openly and without fear. Even if Yang Yi and Huang Ying were very strong, they ignored both of them when Snowy showed herself. Huang Ying shook his head and chuckled. Brother Yang, it's best to make her stay inside. Once she shows herself, it's like a stimulant to everyone in the surroundings, and that isn't a good thing. Yang Yi gazed at Snowy, and he rubbed her head and smiled. Go play inside. Snowy blinked and waved her paws swiftly. A short while later, joy appeared on Yang Ye's face. Really? Snowy nodded repeatedly. Yang Yi smiled. Very good. You did well. Snowy cracked a smile, hugged Yang Yi and rubbed her head against him, and then she entered the primordial pagoda. Yang Yi grinned on the spot. My awesome Snowy. Huang Ying walked over to Yang Ye's side and smiled. Brother Yang, let's go. Yang Yi glanced at him. How confident in you at being able to get back. Huang Ying smiled. To be honest, I'm not confident at all. However, it's our own effort that makes things happen, right? I want to try. If I succeed, I'll get everything. If I fail, I'll just die. What do you think, Brother Yang? Yang Yi smiled. Good luck. Huang Ying grinned, and they continued forward. However, they hadn't gone far before an old man in a black robe appeared before them. Huang Ying chuckled. Just a short distance is so difficult to traverse. The old man cupped his fist at Huang Ying. "Ninth Prince, I have something to say. I wonder if you're willing to hear it." Huang Ying replied, "Go on." The old man said, "Everyone knows what you seek, but allow me to be honest. You're bringing death upon yourself by joining forces with Yang Yi. He has the sprite progenitor and it's extremely close to him. So any power that gets the sprite progenitor will kill him. It can be said that his fate is sealed." Yang Yi glanced at the old man and remained silent. Obviously, these powers wanted to kill him and take Snowy, but they were afraid of Huang Ying. After all, Huang Ying had a colossus like the desolate race standing behind him. Huang Ying smiled. "Go on." The old man spoke solemnly. "Ninth Prince, Yang Yi is a bloodthirsty and ruthless person. So, working with him is no different than creating a conflict of interest for yourself. Ninth Prince, there are countless powers targeting him now, and it can be said that danger is all around you. The slightest mistake may result in eternal damnation." Huang Ying smiled. "There's a large power in Hell World, the Hell Sect. You're probably from there, right? However, you're only at the four-world realm, and you aren't even at the peak of it. So, you're probably just an elder or vice master, right?" The old man glanced at him and remained silent. Huang Ying added, "After listening to you for so long, allow me to say a few words. The Hell Sect isn't qualified to interfere in my business." The old man gazed at Huang Ying for a long time and said, "Then good luck." The old man turned around and left. Once the old man left, specks of starlight suddenly appeared throughout the sky above the mountain range. It was like a huge net had covered the mountain range, and the ground was trembling. After that, countless threads of golden light appeared on the ground. Besides that, golden circles of light suddenly appeared in the mountains throughout the surroundings. The circles of light were around 300 m wide, and every one of them was linked by a beam of light. A formation. A huge formation. The formation covered the space throughout the area. Huang Ying gazed at Yang Yi and smiled. "Brother Yang, looks like we won't be able to leave safely." Yang Yi spoke indifferently. "Then let's kill." Yang Yi understood the situation well. He was in a terrible one. Every power would never let him live, so there was only a single solution for him. Kill. If he had many enemies, he just had to kill until there were none left. That was how Yang Yi thought. Huang Ying shot a glance at the sky and said, "Then let's rest for a while." Yang Yi gazed at him. "Rest?" Huang Ying smiled. "This formation is here to trap us. If I'm not wrong, they've probably come to some sort of agreement, and they are gathering experts. Besides that, my brothers are probably gathering their forces too." Yang Yi glanced at Huang Ying. "Then why are you still thinking about resting?" Huang Ying said, "If we break out of the formation now, it'll be exactly what they want. This formation has no problem trapped around 10-4 world realm experts. Even if we're able to break through it, it'll exhaust a huge amount of our strength. So, isn't it better to rest and wait for them to do the work for us when they attack?" Yang Yi shrugged. "Do as you want." Yang Yi sat cross-legged and entered the primordial pagoda. In the primordial pagoda, powerful auras were rippling incessantly in the rear mountains of the Sword Sect, and it caused the entire Sword Sect to tremble. Yang Yi hurried over there to Oxy's territory, and Snowy appeared before him. She pointed to the right where Oxy was. Yang Yi looked along that direction, and he saw Oxy seated there while waves of powerful aura and pressure ceaselessly rippled out of Oxy. Oxy was advancing. Snowy waved her paws swiftly while excitement covered her face. It wasn't just Oxy. The others were advancing too. Obviously, it was the chaotic fruit's work. A short while later, Oxy suddenly opened his eyes. Bang! A powerful aura surged up from him. The three-world realm. At this moment, Oxy had attained the three-world realm. Moreover, he was at the peak of it. It could be said that Oxy could even fight a four-world realm expert while he held the primordial axe of creation. Oxy wasn't the only one. The primal vicious tiger, primal true dragon, and martial Qilin were at the peak of the three-world realm too. All of them had gained a huge improvement in their cultivation. This gave Yang Yi a new understanding of the chaotic fruits which Snowy had been growing. Heaven-defying. They were truly heaven-defying. They were absolute divine treasures. Suddenly, Xianxia seemed to have thought of something and vanished on the spot with Snowy. It didn't take long for them to arrive in Aria's hall. They were just about to head inside when a powerful wave of pressure rippled out from within. Bang! Both of them were blasted over 300 m away. Xianxia was shocked, and he wondered what the heck she was doing. Snowy blinked while bewilderment filled her eyes. Just like that, a long time passed before the hall exploded apart, and it vanished without a trace. Meanwhile, a voice came from afar. "Big Brother Yang, I'm really hungry." Once she finished speaking, she appeared in front of Xianxia with crimson-red eyes. Suddenly, she grabbed Xianxia's thigh and bit it. Xianxia was stunned speechless. Snowy and Xianxia were stunned. What the heck is she doing? Suddenly, Xianxia felt sharp pain come from his thigh, and he was about to kick her off. But he was afraid of harming her and hurriedly stopped himself. Meanwhile, Snowy hugged Aria's hand and used all her strength to pull Aria away. Aria glanced at Snowy, and she was stunned upon seeing Snowy. It didn't take long for the crimson red in her eyes to gradually dim down, and then she released Xianxia's thigh and squatted at the side. There were 2 rows of deep teeth marks on Xianxia's thigh. If she'd used just a little more force, that piece of his flesh would have probably been bitten off. Xianxia circulated his primordial violet energy to heal the injury, yet he noticed to his shock that the primordial violet energy couldn't heal it at all. In the end, he only succeeded upon using the eternal energy. Big Brother Yang. Meanwhile, Aria walked over to him and spoke while keeping her head down. "Sorry." Xianxia shook his head slightly and rubbed her head, but he just happened to rub her little horns. Aria suddenly looked up at him and just gazed at him. Xianxia asked softly, "What is it?" She gazed at him for a long time and said, "It's nothing." Xianxia squatted down and asked, "Aria, what happened?" She cracked a smile. "I think I attained the 4-world realm." The 4-world realm. Xianxia sized up Aria. Sure enough, she was at the 4-world realm. Xianxia was delighted. Aria's combat strength was extremely powerful, so now that she was at the 4-world realm, she was absolutely not an existence that ordinary 4-world realm experts could resist. Xianxia restrained his thoughts and asked, "Why did you bite me?" She blinked and answered, "I'm very hungry." Meanwhile, Snowy hurriedly passed a tonghulu to her, but she shook her head. "That won't fill my stomach." Snowy was stunned. Xianxia spoke seriously. "Aria, you seemed very unusual earlier. Even if you were hungry in the past, you would never bite me. But you didn't seem like the Aria I knew just now." Aria lowered her head. Xianxia spoke softly. "Aria, what's going on?" She shook her head. "I don't know either. I just felt very hungry, and I wanted to eat anything I saw. Especially you, your flesh is very fragrant. I really want to eat you." She glanced timidly at Xianxia and continued, "Big Brother Yang, you won't beat me, right?" Xianxia shook his head and spoke seriously. "Aria, I don't know what you are, but you must promise me that you can't harm anyone else in this pagoda. We are all your friends, right?" Aria nodded and replied seriously, "I won't harm all of you. I never will." Xianxia grinned. "Good. As for being hungry, don't worry. Many will be here to kill us soon. At that time, you can eat anyone you like." Aria's eyes lit up. "Really?" Xianxia smiled. "Of course." She blinked. "Big Brother Yang. But I'll be eating people." Xianxia smiled. "Some people must never be eaten, even if you're hungry. But some should be eaten." She cracked a smile. "I understand now." Xianxia nodded, and then he left the pagoda with Snowy. Outside the primordial pagoda, Huang Ying glanced at Snowy, who was on Xianxia's shoulder. Snowy blinked at Huang Ying, and then she waved her paw. Obviously, she was greeting him. As far as she was concerned, Huang Ying wasn't an enemy since he was with Xianxia. Huang Ying was stunned by this, and he wondered if the sprite progenitor was greeting him. A moment later, he recovered from his shock and nodded slightly as a form of greeting. The sprite progenitor wasn't like what he'd imagined. Huang Ying restrained his thoughts and gazed at Xianxia, and then he laughed bitterly. "Brother Yang, they'll all go mad if you let her come outside." Xianxia said, I think we should seize the initiative. Huang Ying asked. You have an idea? Yang Yi smiled and gazed at Snowy, and the latter nodded. She glanced at the surroundings, and then she sniffed lightly. Hiss! In an instant, the mysterious energy throughout the surroundings trembled, and then the energy and spirit energy in the surroundings surged toward Snowy. Moreover, the mountains in the surroundings started trembling, and then the spirit energy within them surged to Snowy as well. Extracting spirit energy. Huang Ying's eyes narrowed slightly as he'd recalled something. All those years ago during the war between the Desolate Race and Eternal Kingdom, the Desolate Race had countless formidable formations too. However, they were useless once the sprite progenitor joined the battle. All formations in the world required spirit energy to be maintained and used, and they were utterly useless without spirit energy. While the sprite progenitor didn't know formations well, she knew spirit energy well. She could extract the spirit energy in the formations, and they would be useless without that spirit energy. As for Snowy, while she hadn't truly become a sprite progenitor yet, she had the ability to extract spirit energy. Just like that, Yang Yi and the others watched as countless torrents of spirit energy were devoured by Snowy, and the formation soundlessly vanished. Snowy burped and smiled brilliantly at Yang Yi. Yang Yi rubbed her head. Go inside and get some rest. Snowy nodded. She rubbed her head against Yang Ye's head, and then she returned to the primordial pagoda. Yang Yi gazed at Huang Ying. Brother Ying, let's go. Huang Ying nodded. Suddenly, he looked to the side. Brother Yang, we can't. Yang Yi looked over, and he saw a young man walking slowly in their direction. It was Huang Yi. There were 6 other figures behind Huang Yi, and these included the initial emperor, Bei Chuanxiu, Han Yuanting, and Luoli Ming. All of them were 4-world realm experts now. It was normal because they were extraordinary geniuses, and they had been extremely strong before this. Now that they had access to Huang Ye's resources, it was absolutely easy for them to attain the 4-world realm. Besides them, there were 2 other middle-aged men at the 4-world realm. 7 4-world realm experts. Huang Yi walked over to them and grinned. Ninth brother. Long time no see. Huang Ying grinned. Where's my eldest brother? If I'm not wrong, he should be here too, right? Huang Yi glanced to the right. Isn't he just over there? Huang Ying looked over, and a man walked over slowly from there. It was Huang Tianxing. Yigo was following behind Huang Tianxing. The small black demon beast was not too far away from Huang Tianxing's right. At this moment, it was glaring at Yang Yi with undisguised killing intent and viciousness. Obviously, it still remembered Yang Yi. Yang Yi glanced at it and just ignored it. The small black demon beast was exasperated from being ignored by Yang Yi, and it bared its fangs at him. However, it seemed to fear something and didn't dare to charge at Yang Yi. Huang Ying glanced at Huang Tianxing, and Yang Yi noticed that there was a wisp of solemnness in Huang Ying's eyes. Meanwhile, Huang Yi suddenly said, Ninth brother, eldest brother, and I never expected you to dare to make this play. Making friends with Yang Yi doesn't just allow you to make friends with an extraordinary expert, you'll gain the help of a sprite progenitor. But don't you think that's a little too much wishful thinking? Huang Ying replied indifferently, I'm just giving it a shot. Huang Yi grinned. Right, we can't let the stalemate continue, and we should decide on a winner. Come on. Let me and eldest brother see the trump cards you've gathered over the years. After all, you would definitely not dare to do this without an amazing trump card. Right? Huang Ying grinned and gazed at Yang Yi. Brother Yang, I'll leave my eldest brother to you, all right? Yang Yi glanced at Huang Tianxing and remained silent. His intuition told him that the serious man before him wasn't easy to deal with, or he should be described as a ruthless person. Huang Ying added, Brother Yang, if you can suppress my eldest brother, then we'll be able to get through this tribulation. Yang Yi still remained silent. Huang Ying laughed bitterly. Brother Yang, deal with him and I'll owe you a favor, all right? I'm not an ungrateful person, so I'll never forget this favor I owe you. Yang Yi smiled. I don't understand something. You seem like you don't want to face him. Huang Ying nodded. Indeed, but not because of fear. Yang Yi asked, Then why? Huang Ying laughed bitterly. Because he's my actual elder brother. We have the same mother. If I killed him, my mother would never forgive me, and it'll be the same if he kills me. Same mothers. Yang Yi nodded. I see. He gazed at Huang Tianxing. Leave him to me. You deal with the rest, all right? Huang Ying cupped his fist at Yang Yi. Thank you. Huang Ying gazed at Huang Yi. Brother Huang Yi, it's time we put an end to the enmity between us. As soon as he finished speaking, he waved his right hand. Soldiers are raised for battle. Show yourselves. Hiss, 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 hiss. In an instant, numerous black shadows soundlessly appeared in the surroundings. After that, they charged at Huang Ye's group. All of them were four-world realm experts. Huang Ying gazed at Huang Yi and grinned. Brother Huang Yi, you possess one of the 10 great physiques, but I still don't know which one it is. So show it to me today. Let me see how formidable one of the 10 great physiques is. Huang Ying vanished on the spot once he finished speaking. An instant later, an extremely powerful aura and pressure swept toward Huang Yi, the peak of the four-world realm. It was the aura of a true peak four-world realm expert, and space was torn apart before it. Huang Yi chuckled. Then I shall. As soon as he finished speaking, he stomped his right foot down and shot forward. The pressure and aura he emanated wasn't any weaker to Huang Ying. Meanwhile, an aura locked onto Yang Yi. Yang Yi looked up, and it was the small black demon beast by Huang Tianxing's side. Yang Yi stretched out a finger and gestured at it. The demon beast's eyes almost split open with rage, and it charged at Yang Yi. It grew larger and larger as it charged at him, and its aura grew increasingly stronger as well. When it arrived just a few meters away from Yang Yi, it had grown around 10 times larger. The peak of the four-world realm. The demon beast opened its mouth and attempted to bite Yang Yi. Its mouth was huge, and its fangs were really long. Suddenly, Arya appeared in front of Yang Yi, and then she started smiling as she gazed at it. She smiled so happily and so sincerely, it made a chill run down Yang Ye's spine.